Welcome, everybody. We're going to be talking to you today about bringing AI products to market and some things that actually worked and some that didn't quite work. So we'll start with a focus on LLMs, that's an abbreviation for large language models, a type of AI trained on the world's written language. So some things about this that you need to know. ChatGPT. That's probably the most famous LLM out there. It's the fastest growing consumer application in history, in case you haven't heard of it before. It reached over 100 million users in its first few months. I'm sure for this crowd, you guys are familiar with that. A couple of useful ways to think about AI. Number one, they're concentrators of consensus. So that means if there's a large body of information available in written form, so things like the text on the internet, books, other things that LLMs have been trained on, that's an area where an LLM is quite likely to provide you with useful information. A little bit of a sort of an oversimplification in terms of how they work is you can think of them as predicting the next word. And when there is consensus on that, they do a pretty good job. They will fill in accurately what that next word should be. But absent that data, they're prone to make things up. So some of you guys may have heard of hallucination problem. That happens typically when absent enough data. They're very happy to give you information. It just may not be the information you're looking for.
And because of the way that LLMs learn and are trained, like Nick implied in the last slide, there are safer domains. Maybe your company is in a safer domain where everything seems to work well. It's because there's a lot of data and a lot of content for the LLM to look at and produce the correct response. Versus the riskier, what we're going to call risky or subjective domains, are industries like law, or we're in compliance, where it still heavily relies on a human expert to interpret it and tell you the correct response. So today we're going to get into a little bit of, more focus on the risky domains and how to bring AI into your product if that is your industry.
Okay, so as Jenna mentioned, risky domains, not so risky domains. So a little bit of a click into what are some safer domains. And this is an important question that you all should be thinking about in terms of your own deployment of LLM technology in your business. Is this an area where there's a huge body of knowledge and consensus? If so, things can go pretty well. So GitHub Copilot, for example, that's a tool that assists with writing code. It's been trained on billions and billions of lines of code that's out there. So if you need to write some boilerplate Java, for example, that's already a job where it's providing a ton of value. So one estimate is over 60% of new Java code is being written with the assistance of LLMs in the form of Copilot. There are other domains that are like that, where there's well-known answers, lots and lots of training data. But that doesn't apply to every domain. And so in those circumstances, what are the risks that you're going to face?
Yeah, so the riskier or more subjective domains, like law, are the ones that produce these really catchy, entertaining fails. And they're entertaining as long as you aren't the subject. So for example, the New York lawyers who decided to use ChatGPT to write a legal brief didn't realize that ChatGPT can hallucinate and ended up making up cases for his brief, which of course the judge caught and he was sanctioned. So things like that where you do absolutely still need a human expert, even if you use the AI, so that you don't become a subject of one of these AI fails.
So with that in mind, we at Trustero, we're in the compliance business. And that happens to be one of those domains where there isn't necessarily a huge body of data from which an LLM to draw. So it's prone to, in a sort of untrained mode, to not be that reliable. And so as an example, ISO 27001, that's an information security compliance framework that some of you guys may be familiar with. one of the bits of ISO is a control called cabling security. And it comes down to you need to label controls and label your cables, rather, physical cables, in certain circumstances. And a common question is, well, does that actually apply to remote workers? Or what's the deal with this control, essentially? And so you might think and might be tempted to go and ask an LLM.
And so we're going to walk you through how we found our Goldilocks solution to produce a response that is safe and accurate, and you feel good about giving it to your customers, but it also uses LLM. And all the techniques that we are going to go through, hopefully you can also apply to your business. And I think our example is pretty entertaining. We actually experienced this firsthand.
So it turns out the correct answer on the cabling security is if you're working remotely, no, you do not have to label your power cord, for example. A human expert would tell you that answer very confidently, very succinctly, very quickly. However, human experts do not scale infinitely, and they cost money. That's why you hire compliance experts sometimes, consultants, that type of thing. So human experts, great at getting you that correct answer, but what could we do with an LLM?
So then you're like, okay, well, great. I'll just go and use AI. I'll type in the question. It'll give me the response. I don't have to hire a human. I don't have to deal with all that. We can put into the product. It will scale. Great. Well, we asked the question of AI, and it very confidently told us the wrong answer. Even when we asked them, wait, are you sure? We were using ChatGPT, and every time it said, yes, you absolutely have to label all your cables, even for work from home employees, which is incorrect. The correct answer is no, only if you're a data center. And so even with, we kept trying to prompt it, like, are you sure that's correct? Are you sure work from home employees have to label their power cables? And it kept doubling down with the incorrect response.
So super confident and super wrong. So what's the way out of that? There's a variety of techniques where you can actually put in some guardrails that will assist the LLM. So in domains where you're lacking perhaps enough subjective knowledge or enough objective knowledge, enough sort of body of text out there to have high confidence it's going to give you correct answers, you can actually inject in the prompt some guidance. So the way we end up using it is we want to provide tailored guidance for a variety of circumstances, but augment that with the correct human answer. So we'll give general guidance and then combine that with things about the customer. And you may be able to do the same in your own domain. So inject that human knowledge, that human expertise, and then let the LLM do its own thing while being sort of constrained and kept on the right path.
So our key takeaways from all this is, first decide what is your industry. Are you in a safer industry or are you in a higher risk industry? And if you are in the high risk domain, make sure to include human expertise in all your requests, include it in your prompts to make sure that you get the answers that are correct and you feel good about giving them to your consumers. And then don't be afraid to experiment and iterate. We've been working on this for a very long time to get to a place where we feel confident in our responses, and it is actually scalable to our consumers.
Yeah, and if anybody would like any additional, click down into this, we only had 10 minutes for the talk, but we'd be happy to talk to you about some specific techniques that you might be able to apply to actually make this work. A lot of it comes down to how do you feed the right thing into the prompt. And so there's a few things that we've learned through hard work, trial and error, iterating, as Jenna mentioned. So
our booth is in the West Building if you want to come say hi. But thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.